Hello again and welcome back. Going to be looking at FFT again today. I hope the previous video on the dashboard overviews was useful. Today we're going to be looking at target setting those. So last time we were looking at the overviews, as I say, and that's from the self-evaluation section. So the self-evaluation section deals with past performance at Key Stage 1, at Key Stage 2, at Key Stage 4, looking at what's happened for those cohorts that have left your school essentially or moved on to the next key stage. Target setting is about estimating what might happen for children who are currently in your school. So what might happen at Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 4. I'm going to be looking today at Key Stage 2 again. And so I've logged into FFT Aspire and I've clicked on target setting. And when you click on the target setting section, you will notice that there are three options. There is the overview, which I'm going to be looking at today. There is also pupil groups, so that's looking at estimated outcomes for pupil groups. And then there's the pupil section itself. And so it derives from there. Everything sort of stems from the pupils one. I'm not going to be looking at that today, but each individual child in your school, and I'm looking at year 6 here, but you can click on year 5, you can click on year 4, and what have you, click on year 1, 2. So all the year groups will have estimated outcomes there, and then that aggregates up into here. So essentially what we're looking at is they're taking the prior attainment of children into account, and they're looking at what children like that with that sort of prior attainment have done in previous years. When I say children like that, it's not contextualized, by the way, it's just based on prior attainment. Okay, so it's really important to note that FFT did used to do contextualized targets, but no longer. It is based on prior attainment. So they're simply saying you've got a child like this with this prior attainment. What sort of outcomes might we expect of this child based on what has happened in previous years? What is the likely outcome? And it's kind of based on probability. What percentage of children with prior attainment like this went on to achieve the expected standard or the highest score. So when we click on overview, we will see that there are the subjects, the Key Stage 2 subjects listed here. We've also got combined subjects here, reading and maths, and reading, writing and maths down here. Now, one of the things that causes a bit of confusion is the fact they've also got grammar, punctuation and spelling in here. And I think a lot of people still struggle with how they can set targets for benchmarks for grammar, punctuation and spelling when children didn't do grammar, punctuation and spelling at Key Stage 1. This is more of a primary problem. Secondary colleagues will be very familiar with this because, of course, at secondary, they're doing a whole range of subjects for GCSEs, and the estimated outcomes for those are based on what they got in reading and maths, not writing actually, just reading and maths these days at Key Stage 2. So if you've got a child who's doing German or art or music or whatever, their estimated outcome at Key Stage 4 is based on what they got in reading and maths at Key Stage 2. So a child with Key Stage 2 results like this tends to go on and get a grade 5 in German. So that's what we will set as the benchmark estimate. I need to be clear actually, because I've been sort of chopping and changing between the word target and estimate. Now, FFT are very keen to point out these are not targets, these are estimated outcomes. They're only targets if you choose to adopt them as such. Okay, so they are estimated outcomes, they are there as guidance. So when you look at those individual lists of pupils and it shows their prior attainment and then it shows what they're likely to get, whether they're likely to fall below the standard of the test to get a B, or whether they're likely to fall below, take the test but get a score below the national standard, that would be presented as a W, and then an N means they'd hit the expected standard, which they refer to as national standard, or whether they're likely to score 110 or more, so get above the national standard. Okay, so those are presented like that: W's, B's, W's, N's and A's. But anyway, we're not looking at pupil level data now. We might visit that in the future. Today we're just looking at this overview, and this is a really useful page actually. It's a good summary. Each of the subjects there, and then we've got these 3 columns across here which have got the estimated outcomes, the benchmark estimates, and then we've got this own past progress, and then we've got an additional 3 columns as well, which I'll get onto in a bit. So if we look at the first column here, you'll note that there's a percentage in here for each of these subjects and the combined subjects as well. And what FFT have done is they've worked out what the average result might be for a cohort such as your current year 6. So they've taken the prior attainment of your year 6 into account, and they've said, what sort of result might we expect on average for a cohort like this? If you want to look at it a different way, if we took these children out of your school and put them into a school where average rates of progress are made from Key Stage 1, what sort of result might we expect to see? And that's what FFT 50 is. The sort of results you might expect to see in a school ranked at the 50th percentile for progress. So that's what they've presented in here. So if we go down to the bottom column here, reading, writing and maths combined, that all-important indicator, this school is estimated to achieve 66% if they were an average performing school. Okay, now what I think is useful about this is that it can inject a bit of reality into conversations with, say, governors or consultants, because there is this tendency to expect results to go up all the time. Now, it might be that last year this school had 62%, achieved the expected standard in reading, writing and maths, and this year maybe that achieving 66% would be great, but maybe last year they had 75% achieve the expected standard in reading, writing and maths because they had a much higher prior attaining cohort, and this year they are a lower prior attaining cohort. Maybe they have more children with special educational needs, and we all know that it is cohort specific and that it is a bit of a fancy to expect results to go up every year, year on year. So sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. But that's what this can be useful for. Now, it's important to note that if I was to log into another school's FFT system, it wouldn't say 66% down here unless they had exactly the same type of cohort with exactly the same prior attainment. It might say 48% if they're lower prior attaining in another school's estimate, or if they're a much higher prior attaining cohort, it might say 78%. You log in and you have a look, and if you were to sit with head teachers from other schools and look at this, you'll note that it will all be different. So, first column is the sort of outcomes you might expect in an average performing school. So I guess this is the sort of thing you might be hoping to hit. If you're already ranked above the 50th percentile and you kind of want to maintain your position, I suppose, then these estimates become useful, come into play. So this gives you an idea of the sort of results that you might expect in a school ranked in the top 20%. So 73% reading, writing and maths would be the sort of result you might expect to see in a school ranked at the top 20%. Now note, again, that it's not top 20% for attainment, it's top 20% for progress. 73% may well get you into the top 20% for attainment, but that's not what they're doing here. It could be you've got a very low prior attaining cohort, and that achieving 52% could get you into the top 20%. So the 20th percentile estimate for a low prior attaining, it might say 48% here, 52% here, and in the top 5%, it might be, I don't know, 56, 57%. Okay, so it's not about reaching the sort of the highest attaining schools, it's about the sort of results you'd expect in the schools where the highest rates of progress are made. This is about progress. So we've got an estimate which shows the sort of result you might expect in an average performing school where average rates of progress are made. The sort of result you might expect in a school ranked at the 20th percentile. So it's the sort of progress you see in a top 20% school. And then we've got the sort of results you might expect to see in schools where the highest rates of progress are made, those schools that are ranked at the 5th percentile. And of course, you can see your percentile ranks for your previous year's cohorts in the inspection data summary reports. It gives you an idea of where you currently are ranked, and also FFT provide that in the attainment and progress page. Now, this next column here, this own past progress, this is more a prediction because this takes account of your progress rates in previous years. So these are estimates. So this is taking your children out of your school and putting them into these hypothetical schools ranked at these positions nationally. And then they're saying, right, okay, so let's go back and we'll take the prior attainment of your children and let's look at what sort of progress rates you've had in previous years and let's calculate a kind of prediction for that cohort. So on average, we'd expect 66% of children to achieve expected standards. Chances are. But we predict that 67% of your children will achieve expected standards. So they're predicting that this school will be a little bit above the 50th, maybe the 49th, 48th percentile, but not reaching the 20% because that's not where they've been in previous years. But they may well do it, but we don't know. Now, these next three columns are not completed. These will only be populated once you go into the pupil level target setting and you set a target for those children. So you look at the end estimate. Like I say, children will have Bs if they are estimated to be below the standard of the test based on prior attainment. Ws if they're estimated to fall short of 100 in the test. Ns if they're estimated to get above 100 but not reach a high score. And As if they're estimated to get 110. Now note, they also have these pluses or minuses which show kind of opportunities and risks really. If a child has got an N plus, then they've got the most likely outcome is to achieve above 100, and they've got, whilst it's not the majority of children in that kind of prior attainment group that are going to achieve the high score, they still have quite a strong chance. They might have a 40% chance doing it. Minuses, if they've got a minus there, that will indicate a risk, which means the chances are they will meet the, if it's N minus, that they will reach the expected standard, but it might be that there's quite a big risk, say a 40% chance that they will fall short of that. Now, what you can then do, if you look at the pupil level target setting, there are these little blue circles with a question mark in, and you can then go in and agree with the estimate. You can say, yeah, okay, I agree that's going to be a W. No, I don't think they'll hit the expected standard. No, I don't. I think this child will hit the expected. So they're estimated to get a W. I think they'll get an N. So I'll put an N in there. So you go down through all those children and you set a target for them. That then aggregates on here. So if we go back to this row, we've got a 50th percentile estimate of 50 and 73 for the 20th percentile, 80% for the 5th percentile. The own past progress, they're saying we reckon 67% is the prediction, but based on the targets you've set at the pupil level, it will aggregate up and maybe it says 72%. So it's kind of agreeing that you're kind of setting targets that would put you into that sort of round about that 20th percentile, maybe a little bit short. So you need to set the pupil level thing, targets for that to be populated. Okay, and that's it really. I hope that's useful. That's the overview of target setting in FFT Aspire, and we will come back and we will visit some FFT data again in the near future. Okay, thank you, bye-bye.